We're going to show you how to refuel your fire and get it burning bright again. So let's just get right into it. Ever have one of those days, or maybe even one of those weeks, where it just feels like your fire has gone out? I mean, we've all been there, right? Whether you're a student staring at a mountain of books, an artist facing a totally blank canvas, or you're just grinding through a tough project at work, that feeling is completely universal. And I love how our source material frames this. It describes motivation as the actual fuel that keeps a fire burning. You know, it's not just about working hard. It's the thing that separates us from machines. It's that adrenaline rush, that internal drive that helps you pull off things you normally couldn't. But here's the thing. Just like any fuel, motivation can, and does, run out. It's not something you just have forever. This tends to happen when our goals seem impossibly far away, or when we just hit a wall of discouragement. So let's take a look at why that spark starts to fade in the first place. Yeah, these motivation crushers can be so real. I mean, imagine you're a basketball player and you come up against an opponent who is just on a completely different level. Or maybe you're an environmentalist and you witness some huge, devastating pollution event. Moments like that can feel like a gut punch, right? They can totally extinguish your drive. It also happens when goals just feel way too distant, or when a source of inspiration, like a mentor or even a relationship, lets you down. So the big question is, how do we get it back? And it's definitely not as simple as just trying to want it more. The first part of the solution is all about your mindset. It's about recalibrating that internal compass to find your way back on track. Okay, so it all starts with the powerful link between your mind and your body. The idea is that positive thinking really can help things start to fall into place. But, and this is a big but, it's not about ignoring the bad stuff. The key is to acknowledge that negative thoughts are totally 100% normal. Accepting them is actually the first step to moving right past them. And this is such a brilliant way to think about it. A huge goal, like earning $1 million, can feel incredibly demotivating because it's so far away. The trick? You got to break it down. Don't wait for the million to finally feel satisfied. Optimism, which is positive. Why? So that when it happens, you're not completely blindsided. You can actually bounce back a whole lot faster. And this mindset toolkit has a few more essential tools. First, you need to set one clear final goal. That's your North Star. Then you've got to recall that goal backup plan. That way, a setback never becomes a complete dead end. But, motivation isn't all in your head. Our next section gets into the physical side of things. I mean, your mind can't run on fumes if your body is also running on empty. So let's look at the actual fuel you need for your body. This is pretty much your physical and environmental well-being checklist, and it's all deeply connected. A healthy diet, regular exercise, proper sleep, staying hydrated, all the stuff we know we should be doing. But also little things, like taking short naps during the day to reset. And even keeping your living and working spaces clean can have a huge impact on your mental state. You know what they say, a cluttered space often leads to a cluttered, anxious mind. And let's just zoom in on one of these for a second. 8. The source is crystal clear on this. 8 hours of sleep a day is the minimum your brain needs to properly process problems, manage stress, and sort through information. Skimping on sleep is basically like trying to run a marathon right after pulling an all-nighter. It just doesn't work. Okay, so you've got your mindset dialed in, and your body is fueled up. So what's next? Well, now it's about building resilience. This is how you protect that flame from the winds of adversity. Because trust me, those winds will blow. Here's a really crucial piece of advice from the source. Take company of successful people. Now, this isn't just about networking or trying to get ahead. It's about surrounding yourself with people who have already walked the path you're on. They can offer advice, support, and just serve as a living, breathing example of what's actually possible. And this isn't just about finding a bunch of cheerleaders either. The source recommends building a whole team. You find a goal buddy who shares your same drive. You get a coach or advisor for that expert guidance. And I absolutely love this one. Find a criticism buddy. Yep, someone who can constructively point out your flaws so you can make your plan even stronger. And of course, surround yourself with genuinely optimistic people. That kind of energy is absolutely contagious. And here it is, a really powerful secret. You don't have to wait for motivation to strike. In fact, it's usually the other way around. Action creates momentum. The secret is to just jump right back on track, even when you do not feel like it. The feeling, that motivation, it will follow the action. And this shows you exactly how to build that momentum. You start with small achievements. Then, and this part is key, you have to recognize and celebrate them. Give yourself a reward. This creates this amazing positive feedback loop in your brain. Your brain learns that success feels good, and it starts to crave more of it. And guess what? That craving is motivation. All right, let's talk about the F word for a second. Failure. It's going to happen. It's just a part of the process. The source here frames it not as some kind of endpoint, but as an inevitable and frankly necessary part of life. And think about it. Success tastes so much sweeter because we know what it feels like to fail. It gives us that contrast and makes the wins truly meaningful. Phew. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. Mindset, body, and resilience. So for our final section, let's bring it all together and talk about how to keep that fire burning bright for the long haul. And for me, this is the most empowering idea of all. Motivation isn't some magical, mystical force that just visits you when it feels like it. No way! It's a system. It's a practice. It's a set of habits and tools that you can actually control and maintain yourself. So here it is, your first aid kit for when you feel that fire starting to fade. First, adjust your mindset. Break down your goals and practice that humble optimism. Second, fuel your body and clean up your environment. Third, build your resilience by taking action, especially when you don't feel like it. And fourth, find your support system. Build your team. We've laid out the entire toolkit for you. The logs, the kindling, the spark, it's all here. So the only real question left is the one you see right now. Looking at your own life and your own goals, what fuel will you add to your fire first?
Deep dive. Today, we are popping the hood on the human machine.
I like that.
We're working with a text called Refueling the Fire, the Motivational Handbook. And honestly, this isn't your standard, rah-rah, high-fiving motivational speech.
Not at all.
It reads much more like a mechanic's manual for a high-performance engine.
It really is distinct in that way. It treats motivation completely differently than most self-help books you'd find on the shelf.
Right.
Usually we think of motivation as this magical personality trait, right?
Yeah.
You either have the drive or you don't.
You're born a go-getter or you're a slacker.
Exactly. But this text argues that motivation is just fuel. Literal combustible fuel. And like any fuel, it burns up.
Which is a massive relief, actually.
Yeah.
Because if motivation is a trait and I lose it, well, that means I'm broken. It's massive relief, actually. But if it's fuel, because I lose it, it just means I'm empty. I just need to pull over to the gas station.
Exactly. And that's the core problem the handbook addresses right at the start. It says even the highest performers, the Ferraris of the human world, will run dry if they don't refuel. And it identifies two ways you lose that fuel. One is just natural usage. You work hard, you burn gas. Simple.
Sure.
But the other is more violent. The text talks about motivation being crushed.
Yeah, this part stood out to me because it feels so real. It gave the example of a basketball player who wants to be the best in the region.
Right.
He trains every day, wakes up early, does everything right, and then he gets absolutely destroyed by a rival in a game.
Yeah.
Or think of an environmentalist who spends years fighting for a cause. Totally. We're going to look at the specific tactical mechanics this handbook offers for patching the tank and refining the fuel. We're talking psychological pivots, biological inputs.
And environmental controls.
Yeah. Let's start with the psychology, specifically the mindset. I think most people assume that to stay motivated, you need to be an optimist. You have to believe everything will work out perfectly. But the text actually warns against that, doesn't it?
It does. It distinguishes between what it calls blind optimism and humble optimism.
Okay.
And blind optimism is dangerous because it's fragile. If you believe everything is going to be perfect, that the road is straight and paved with gold, the first time you hit a pothole, your suspension just snaps.
You weren't ready for it. You didn't budget for the bump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does humble optimism look like? It's data-driven. It's knowing you have the capacity to figure things out without assuming the road will be smooth.
Right.
But the text pairs this with a concept I really loved, healthy pessimism.
Which sounds like a total contradiction. We're usually told to, banish negative thoughts.
I know, right? Pessimism is the enemy.
Yeah.
But think about the typhoon analogy the author uses. If a typhoon is coming, the blind optimist just hopes it misses. They leave the windows open.
Okay.
The healthy pessimist assumes it might hit and boards up the windows. They stock up on water.
So when the storm actually hits, the optimist is devastated, but the pessimist is. Oh, they're still standing.
Precisely. Healthy pessimism acts as a shock absorber. It protects your fuel tank from being punctured by a sudden failure because you already accounted for the possibility of failure. You aren't blindsided.
You're prepared.
You're prepared. It's not about believing you will fail. It's about being ready if things go sideways so you don't quit.
That's a crucial shift. It's okay to anticipate the crash so you can survive it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of fuel sources, the handbook has a very specific warning about where you get your inspiration from.
Yes.
It draws a hard line between internal and external inspiration.
This is a trap a lot of us fall into, especially early in our careers or, relationships. We use other people as our battery pack.
Sure.
The text acknowledges that doing things for others, parents, siblings, a partner, is a powerful motivator. It gets you moving. It's high octane.
I bet.
But it classifies this as volatile fuel
Volatile because people are unpredictable.
because people leave
Yeah.
or relationships change. The specific example in the text is pretty rough, but it's effective. Imagine you are building a career, working late nights, grinding away, all to impress a special someone.
Okay.
If that relationship ends, if you go through a breakup, your motivation doesn't just dip, it evaporates.
Because the source code for your drive is gone. You're pressing the gas pedal, but the engine is disconnected.
Right. The handbook argues you have to diversify your fuel. At it this way. If your satisfaction requires this complex alignment of stars,
Right.
you need to be making X amount of money, living in Y city with the job title.
Uh-huh.
To be happy, you're creating a massive mental burden.
Making the engine work too hard just to idle. You're burning fuel just sitting at the stoplight.
A simple I means finding satisfaction in the basics.
Very.
If you can derive joy from the process of the work itself, or a cup of coffee or a small win, you reduce the energy cost of your day.
It preserves fuel.
It preserves fuel for the big goals because you aren't burning it all up just trying to maintain your baseline happiness. It's about efficiency.
I like that. Efficiency through simplicity. Okay, let's shift gears. We've got the mindset.
Now for the tactics.
Now we need the tactics. How do we actually move the car down the road? The text uses a visualization tool called the download bar.
This is one of the most relatable analogies in the whole book. I mean, we've all sat there watching a large file download, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you stare at the total size, say 50 gigabytes, and it's at 0, you feel hopeless. It feels like it'll take forever.
You want to cancel the download.
You want to cancel it. But what happens when you see the bar move just a sliver?
You get that little hit of dopamine. You think, okay, it's working, it's moving.
That's the feeling you have to hack. The text says we often look at the $1 million goal or the Olympic gold medal, and we freeze because the gap is too big. The file size is too large.
So you have to manufacture a progress bar.
You break the goal down until you can see the bar move every single day.
So if the goal is $1 million, you don't focus on the million. You focus on the first 10,000.
Or the first 100, even. It turns a marathon into a series of 100-meter dashes. It's about convincing your brain that you are constantly nearing completion, which releases the energy to keep going.
If you can't see progress, the fuel line gets cut.
Absolutely. You have to visualize the bar moving.
Connected to that is visualization. But the expert here is very clear. We are not talking about vision boards.
No.
You know, where you paste a picture of a yacht on your wall and wait for the universe to deliver it?
Chuckles, no, that's passive. The text advocates for strategic visualization. It advises visualizing the steps, specifically the difficult ones.
It's about mental rehearsal.
Exactly. You visualize the roadblocks, the turns, the exhaustion. You visualize yourself solving the problems. You're simulating the race before you run it.
So when you actually hit that difficult Tuesday where everything goes wrong, your brain goes, oh, I've been here before. I know what to do.
It reduces the panic response. It lowers the shock that we talked about earlier.
But what about when we just stop? When we're depressed, sluggish, and we just don't want to do it? The text has a technique for this called jump ahead.
Ah, yes. This challenges the biggest lie we tell ourselves. I'll do it when I feel like it.
Right. We think feeling leads to action.
We think we need to feel inspired to write or feel energetic to exercise. The jump ahead technique flips the circuit. It says action leads to feeling.
So you just force the movement. You just bypass the brain.
You have to. You jump ahead of your feelings. You start the task mechanically, even if you hate it. The text argues that the excitement, the flow state, the fuel, it only kicks in after you've started moving.
You can't think your way into motivation.
You have to act your way into it. Inertia is real, and the only way to break it is force.
It's fake it till you make it, but for productivity. Okay, I want to pivot to the section that surprised me the most. We've been talking mind games, but the handbook gets very biological. It argues you can't run a Ferrari engine in a rusted out chassis.
It's the hardware-software connection. You can have the best mindset in the world, but if your biology is crashing, your motivation will crash with it. The text claims a direct link between a nourished body and a motivated mind.
And it gets really granular about diet. I was happy to see chocolate on the list. I felt very seen by that.
Yes, it validates the chocolate habit. But look at the context. It mentions chocolates and coffee for immediate, short-term energy spikes, using them as tools.
Like nitrous oxide in a car.
Exactly. But for sustained mood, it points to truffles and, interestingly, watery fruits.
Watermelon and citrus specifically. Yeah. Why those? Why does watermelon help me work harder?
It's the hydration-vitamin combination. The text warns that a dehydrated body is physiologically more prone to stress. When you are dehydrated, your cortisol levels can spike easier.
You have less resilience.
Way less. So eating water-rich foods is essentially cooling down the engine so it doesn't overheat. A fresh, hydrated body handles stress better than a sluggish, dry one.
And then there's sleep. I think we all know we should sleep, but the source uses a Freudian theory to explain why lack of sleep kills motivation.
It's a fascinating take.
Yeah.
The source suggests that during the day, we accumulate all this trash, stress, little failures, anxieties, snarky comments we heard. Sleep is the garbage disposal. The unconscious mind processes that trash and clears the cache.
So if you pull an all-nighter,
if the trash doesn't get taken out, you wake up with yesterday's stress still clogging the system. That's why everything feels emotionally heavier when you're tired. You're trying to process new data through a clogged filter.
So the actionable advice is the classic 8 hours, and I love a good justification for this, naps.
So 10-minute naps, a quick system reboot, but then... then we get to the advice nobody wants to hear.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
The cold showers.
The dreaded cold shower.
Is there any actual merit to this? Or is the author just trying to make us all miserable?
According to the handbook, it's about the shock. It says cold showers calm the mind and clear the vision. Biologically, that shock of cold water triggers a massive release of norepinephrine. It wakes up the brain.
It's a hard reset.
It's a hard reset.
Yeah.
If you're feeling sluggish and unmotivated, you can't just think yourself energetic. You have to shock the system and use that staying in bed late, drifting in and out of sleep until 10 or 11, puts you in a reactive state. You're starting the day sluggish.
Right.
Waking up early, specifically by 7 a.m., is positioned as the first win of the day. You beat the alarm. You beat the comfort. You start with a victory, and that momentum carries forward.
Okay, so we've tuned up the mind, we've fueled the body, and now let's look at the road we're driving on, our environment. The handbook gets surprisingly aesthetic here. It talks about staying pretty and keeping fashion high.
I know, it sounds superficial at first glance, but it's not about vanity. It's about self-perception.
Right.
The text suggests that when you feel low, you tend to dress low sweatpants, messy hair. That reinforces the feeling of being a mess.
So dressing up is armor. It's costume design for the role you want to play.
Exactly. It says that buying a sharp suit or a nice dress after a downfall can jumpstart your confidence. It signals to your brain, I am still in the game. I am still valuable.
It also touches on color psychology.
Well, avoiding heavy, dark colors if you're prone to depression, or avoiding overstimulating bright reds if you're prone to anxiety.
And the physical space. Cleanliness.
A messy room makes the brain feel anxious and hurrying. That's the phrase used. Visual clutter creates mental static. Cleaning your room isn't just a chore. It's an act of organizing your mind.
It clears the path.
It clears the path. You can't focus on a complex goal when your peripheral vision is full of dirty laundry.
So true. Now, we have to talk about the other cars on the road, the people around us.
The social ecosystem.
Right. We established that we shouldn't rely on them for our source of fuel, but they are crucial for maintenance. You need people.
But you need the right dynamic. The text encourages friendly competition.
Iron sharpening iron.
Right. If your friend is striving for a 4.0 GPA and you're striving for a sports title, even though the goals are different, the energy is the same. You push each other.
But the text tackles the dark side of this too. Envy.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
What happens when your friendly rival wins and you don't? That can turn toxic really fast.
It can destroy your motivation. You feel small. You feel like a failure.
The handbook has a very counterintuitive solution for this. It says, if you feel envy rising, kill it immediately by throwing them a party.
What?
Buy them dinner. Celebrate them aggressively.
That feels like the last thing I'd want to do if I'm jealous. It sounds like torture.
That's why it works. It's cognitive dissonance. You cannot effectively hate someone you are toasting. By forcing yourself to celebrate them, you replace the envy with shared joy.
You hack your brain.
You hack your brain to associate success, even someone else's, with happiness rather than bitterness. It keeps you in the winner circle mentally. If you sit home and sulk, You're just cementing your status as a loser.
It prevents you from becoming a hater. And speaking of feedback, there's one specific role the text says we need in our circle. Not a cheerleader, but a criticism buddy.
This is distinct from a hater. A hater just wants you to fail. A criticism buddy is someone you invite to poke holes in your plan.
You ask them, tell me why this won't work.
Exactly. Going back to the typhoon analogy, this is the person checking if your windows are actually boarded up correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We often have blind spots because we love our own ideas.
You need someone trusted to say, hey, you miss a spot here before the storm hits.
It saves you from the unnecessary mistake.
I want to get to that unnecessary mistake concept in the outro, but first, we have to talk about the crash.
The crash, yeah.
Because even if you do all this, you eat the watermelon, you visualize the steps, you dress well, sometimes the car still breaks down.
The recovery section. This is vital because most people don't know how to stop. When things go wrong, we panic. We just floor the gas pedal while spinning in the mud.
So the first step is the stop the panic protocol.
Just stop. Sit back. Realize you are out of control. You cannot refuel a car while it's careening off a cliff. You have to come to a halt. The text emphasizes that panic burns fuel faster than anything else.
You have to stop the bleeding before you can heal.
And once you've stopped, the text offers some really unique ways to reboot. One of them is role swapping.
This is an empathy exercise to get you out of your own head.
It is. The text suggests trying to mentally or even literally change places with someone else, a janitor, a cook, a carpenter.
How does that help my motivation, though? That seems disconnected.
It breaks the loop of rumination. We tend to think our problems are the center of the universe. Oh no, my project failed. The world is ending.
Right.
When you step into someone else's narrative, you realize the world is huge and your specific failure is actually quite small. It lightens the load. It gives you perspective.
And then there's this suggestion that I honestly thought was a typo at first. The Disney factor.
Chuckles, I know. Watch Snow White. Watch The Little Mermaid.
Is there any scientific basis for this, or does the author just really like cartoons?
It's psychological regression, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
The argument is that we live in a cynical, gritty world. Our defense mechanisms are always up.
Mm-hmm.
Watching a happily ever after story, even if it's a fairy tale, resets a baseline of hope. It reminds the subconscious that good can triumph. It's a fast way to lower your cortisol and reconnect with a more innocent, hopeful drive.
It helps you believe in the possibility of a happy ending again. I'll take any excuse to watch the classics.
Me too.
But the final piece of recovery is much heavier. It's about forgiveness. The text describes unforgiveness as a physical weight.
A big iron ball chained around your legs. That's the image. If you are holding a grudge against a boss, an ex, a rival, you are dragging that iron ball every time you try to run.
It consumes massive amounts of fuel.
Just to carry the hate. And I think the heaviest ball is often the one we chain to ourselves. Forgiving yourself for past failures.
Absolutely. Self-blame is the most inefficient use of emotional fuel.
The text is brutal about this. You cannot win the race dragging that ball. You have to cut the chain. Forgiveness isn't about the other person needing an apology. It's about you needing the energy back.
You forgive to free yourself, not them.
Exactly.
So we've covered the entire manual. We've looked at the psychology of humble optimism, the tactics of the download bar, the biology of diet and sleep, the environment, and the recovery protocols.
If we boil it all down, the takeaway is that motivation is a system to be managed, not a gift to be waited for.
Yeah.
You wouldn't drive your car for 100,000 miles without changing the oil or checking the tires. You can't expect your ambition to survive without maintenance either. It requires constant tuning.
And that brings us to the final thought I wanted to leave our listeners with, the concept of the unnecessary mistake.
This really stuck with me. The text distinguishes between learning mistakes, which are good, they teach us, they are part of the process,
Right.
and unnecessary mistakes.
These are the unforced errors.
Exactly. Staying up until 2 a.m., scrolling when you know you have a big day, skipping the meal, letting your ego prevent you from listening to the criticism buddy. These are mistakes we make not because we don't know better.
But because we're being lazy or arrogant.
Yes. And those are the ones that drain the tank the fastest because they come with guilt. We know we sabotaged ourselves.
Right. So the challenge for the listener is identify the unnecessary mistake.
Right.
What is the one thing you are doing right now that is leaking fuel?
You know, we're going to talk about a question that, let's
Is
be
it
honest,
grudge?
every single
Is
one
it
of us
sleep
asks
schedule?
at some point.
Is it the lack of
Using some
preparation?
incredible insights from
Catch it.
author Andrew
Refuel the
Donovan
tank.
and psychologist
Get
E.
back on
Scott
the road.
Geller, we're going to build a literal blueprint for motivation. The goal here, to move you from just kind of wondering about your life to actually designing it on purpose? Let's jump in. Oof, that question can just stop you in your tracks, can it? Author Andrew Donovan puts this right at the center of her work because, well, so many of us feel this. It's that little nagging voice in the back of your head, that feeling that something's missing, like you're stuck somewhere between the life you have and the life you really want. But here's the thing, that feeling, it's not a dead end. It's the starting line. And to really understand why this is so important, just look at this. These are the top regrets of people at the end of their lives, documented by a palliative care nurse named Bronnie Ware. The number one regret? I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Wow. People wish they hadn't worked so hard, that they'd had the guts to say how they really felt, that they'd kept up with friends. And the last one is just heartbreaking. I wish I had let myself be happier. You see the theme here, right? It's all about a loss of choice, a lack of connection, not being authentic. And that is exactly why living with purpose, starting right now, is so incredibly important. Okay, so how do we avoid having those regrets? Well, it all starts by looking inward. If we really want to change our lives, we have to understand the psychological engine that's driving us in the first place. It's time to do a little rewiring. So Dr. E. Scott Geller points out this really fascinating idea. Most of us fall into one of two camps. Are you a success seeker, someone who's motivated by the thrill of victory, the chance to win? Or are you a failure avoider, someone who's mostly motivated by, well, not losing? A really easy way to tell is to listen to the words you use every day. Is it, oh, awesome, I get to do this project? Or is it, oh, I've got to do this project? That tiny little shift in language, it reveals everything about your mindset. So, which one are you? To dig a little deeper into why we do what we do, there's this super simple but, wow, incredibly powerful tool called the ABC model. So let's say your phone buzzes. That's the activator. The behavior is, of course, picking it up. But the real driver, the reason you picked it up, that's the consequence you expect. The little dopamine hit from a new message, or maybe the fear of missing out on something important. That expected consequence, that's what's actually running the show. And that leads us to this crucial, central point. Our actions are almost never random. They make perfect sense when you see them as a response to the world. We're always trying to gain something good, avoid something bad, or escape something unpleasant. So if you want to change a behavior in yourself or anyone else, the real magic isn't in focusing on the action itself. The power is in understanding and then adjusting the expected consequences. That's the secret sauce. Okay, so we've looked at our own internal wiring, but here's the thing. Motivation is not a solo journey, not even close. The next huge piece of this puzzle means we have to look outward at how our relationships and our social world can either supercharge our drive or totally drain it. We all grew up with the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. It sounds good, but Dr. Geller says we need an upgrade. It's time for the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated. See the difference? This requires a huge shift. It's about moving from our own point of view to one of real empathy. It means we actually have to listen, to observe, to understand what motivates someone else, not just assume they're like us. This is the bedrock of building truly motivating relationships. And a massive part of that is giving feedback that actually, works. It's so much more than a quick, good job. Here's a 5-step playbook. 1, be specific. Pinpoint the exact action you appreciated. 2, make it personal. Say I and you and mean it. 3, take it higher. Connect that action to a bigger positive quality, like that showed real integrity. Now, 4 is interesting. Deliver it privately. Public praise can actually make some people really uncomfortable. And finally, number 5, let it sink in. Say the positive thing and then just stop talking. Let that good feeling land without burying it under other topics. All right, we've looked inward at our mindset. We've looked outward at our social world. Now, let's put it all together. This is the heart of it all, a simple, actionable blueprint for building self-motivation that actually lasts. The very first pillar of self-motivation is choice. It's the feeling of it, the perception of it. We are fundamentally wired to crave autonomy. When we feel like we have some personal control, that we're making our own decisions, our internal drive just goes through the roof. Even a tiny bit of choice in a situation can make a huge difference in how engaged we feel. The second pillar is competence. And this just makes sense, right? We're motivated by success. When we feel like we're good at something, that we're capable and effective and doing work that matters, we naturally want to do more of it. This is exactly why celebrating those small wins and tracking your progress is so unbelievably powerful. It feeds this fundamental human need to feel competent. And the third and final pillar is interdependence. You could also call it connection or relatedness. This is our deep, deep need to feel connected to other people, to feel like we're part of something bigger than just ourselves. When you're working toward a shared goal with people you care about and trust, well, that creates a sense of community that fuels your motivation in a way that just going it alone never, ever could. So here it is, the whole blueprint in one place. These three things, choice, competence, and interdependence, are the legs of the stool. They are the absolute pillars of lasting self-motivation. And get this, they all work together. When you have a choice, you're more likely to build confidence. When you feel confident and connected to others, you feel more empowered to make your own choices. Just burn these three words into your brain: choice, competence, and interdependence. As we get ready to wrap this up, I want to leave you with this thought from Nido Kubain, because it's so powerful. It doesn't matter where you are right now. It doesn't matter if you feel totally stuck or completely unmotivated. That's not your destination. Today is just your starting point. You have the power to change course, starting this very moment. And this just brings
I want to start
everything
today with a
full
phrase.
circle, doesn't
Just,
it?
three
We
little
started out
words.
with that
Okay.
big
But
question.
depending on
Is
how you
this
say
it?
them,
So
depending
let's
on where you put
end
the
with the
emphasis,
questions.
they can actually describe, well, the entire trajectory of a human life.
Uh-huh.
The phrase is, this is it.
It is such a deceptively simple puzzle, isn't it? Because you're right, you can interpret that in three completely different ways.
Totally.
And which one you choose. It tells me almost everything I need to know about your current mindset.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So let's play it out. You can say it like a question. Is this it?
right.
That's the voice of, the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
That's questioning the quality of your life, looking around at your job, your routine, and just thinking, I really thought there would be more to the movie than this.
That is the resignation. That is the definition of what our sources today call living in the gap.
Then there's the realization, this is it. Meaning, life is happening right now.
Not later.
Not later. This conversation, this commute, this cup of coffee, it's not a rehearsal. The cameras are rolling.
And then my favorite, the celebration. This is it. It's that aha moment, hitting a flow state, a new experience.
So today, we're digging deep into why so many of us get stuck on that first version that, is this it? Feeling. We're looking at this concept of living in the gap.
That frustrating gray space between where you are currently standing and where you actually want to be.
And what's fascinating and honestly a little tragic is that most people living in that gap are waiting.
Perpetually waiting.
They're waiting for future circumstances to change before they allow themselves to be happy.
Mhm.
I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll be fulfilled when I lose 10 pounds.
Or when the kids finally move out, it's the when then trap.
It is. So we're going to dismantle that waiting game today. And to do it, we've pulled from two incredible and very different sources. We've got Andrew Donovan's Motivate Yourself, which is all about finding that deep purpose, the big why. And we're pairing it with E. Scott Geller's Life Coach Guide, which brings the heavy-hitting psychology,
The scientific how.
the scientific how.
It really is a perfect pairing. Donovan helps you identify the destination, your existential true north.
And Geller gives you the behavioral mechanics to actually drive the car there. Our mission today is to move you from resignation to what Geller calls success seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So let's unpack this. We start with Donovan. She's worked with thousands of people, from CEOs to students, and she found that people generally fall into one of 5 categories.
And looking at them, they feel uncomfortably familiar.
Oh, yeah?
They do. Almost all of them center on hesitation. You have people who know what they want but are waiting for the stars to align.
The perfectionist waiters.
Right. You have people who simply don't think they have the confidence. And then the group that I think is most common, people who've just resigned themselves to mediocrity.
Good enough is the ceiling.
It is. They just decided that's it.
It sounds like a lot of waiting for permission. Like they're waiting for some external authority, a
Yeah.
boss, a parent, the universe, to say, okay, you can start living your real life now.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the cost of that waiting isn't just boredom. It's not just a dull Tuesday. It's deep, profound regret. Donovan cites this incredibly moving study by a palliative care nurse, Bronnie Ware. She spent years with people in their final weeks of life.
And she recorded their biggest regrets.
Their top 5 regrets of the dying.
This part always hits me hard because it just strips away all the noise,
It does.
When you're at the end, what actually matters?
Huh.
So what was number 1?
The number 1 regret, consistently was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself.
Not the life others expected of me.
Exactly.
That is so heavy. And notice what isn't there. It's not, I wish I made more money or I wish I had a bigger house.
No, in fact, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. It was number 2.
Get out.
Think about that. We spend our prime years grinding for status, only to wish we hadn't. Other regrets included, suppressing feelings to keep the peace, losing touch with friends.
But that first one, living a life true to yourself, that is the core of living in the gap.
That's the definition of the gap.
Donovan actually offers a bit of a diagnostic in the book to see if you're falling into this. She asks things like, are you hiding parts of yourself? Are you waiting to be thinner, richer, or freer before being happy?
And if you answer yes to those, you're living in the gap. You're arguing for your own limitations.
You're renting your life instead of owning it.
You're actively deferring your life to a future date that may never arrive.
Okay, so we know the stakes. The stakes are dying with regrets. That's the terrifying part.
Right.
But knowing the regrets is the easy part, isn't it? We all know we should live authentically. But actually doing it, that's where we get stuck.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because we have to shift from the philosophical to the mechanical.
Okay.
You can't just think your way out of the gap. You have to behave your way out. This is why we bring in Dr. Scott Geller and the science of behavior.
Geller talks about the ABC model. And I know for a lot of people, ABC sounds, like kindergarten.
It seems so basic. Yeah.
But in applied behavioral science, this is the engine of everything we do.
It is the fundamental loop of human existence. ABC stands for activator, behavior, and consequence.
Activator is what comes before.
A sign, a request, a ringing phone.
The behavior is what we do, and the consequence is what happens after. And usually when we try to change people or ourselves, we focus entirely on the A.
Entirely.
We nag, we put up sticky notes, we set alarms, we rely on the prompt.
We focus on the activators, but the golden rule of behavioral science is selection by consequences.
Meaning?
Behavior is motivated by consequences, not activators. We do things to get something or to avoid something. The activator just tells us the consequence is now available.
And this distinction, getting versus avoiding, is crucial.
Yeah.
Because Geller says it creates two very different types of people, success seekers and failure avoiders.
This is one of the most useful frameworks in the book. Imagine 2 students studying for the same exam.
Okay.
They're doing the exact same behavior, sitting at a desk, highlighting a textbook. But the success seeker is studying because they want to learn. They want the A. They want mastery.
They're acting to gain a positive consequence.
Exactly. And the failure avoider.
They're studying because they're terrified of getting an F.
Terrified. Or terrified of their parents yelling at them. They're acting to escape the negative consequence.
So the action is the same, but the energy fueling it is completely different.
One is pull, the other is push. And the outcome is different too. Success seekers are generally happier, more optimistic, and funnily enough, they actually perform better.
And the failure avoiders are just stressed. They feel controlled.
They feel like victims of the exam rather than masters of it.
This reminds me of the famous marshmallow test. It's a classic, but Geller frames it through this lens of consequence.
Oh, the Walter Mischel experiment. It's legendary. You put a 4-year-old in a room with a marshmallow.
Right.
You tell them you can eat this now, or if you wait until I come back, you get 2.
Which, let's be honest, for a 4-year-old is an eternity. It's basically asking them to wait a decade.
It is absolute torture. You see them sniffing it, licking it, covering their eyes. But here's the fascinating part.
They tracked those kids down 14 years later. The kids who could delay gratification, who could wait for the second marshmallow, had significantly higher SAT scores.
Wow.
Better social skills, better stress management.
So the ability to focus on a future positive consequence rather than an immediate pleasure is a predictor of life success.
Absolutely. It links directly to emotional intelligence, or EQ. It's about impulse control. It's the ability to say, I am not going to do what feels good right now.
Because I'm a success seeker looking for a bigger win later.
You're designing your own consequences.
So we want to be success seekers. We want to chase the positive. But how do we build that environment around us? Especially at work or, in our families.
Right.
Geller talks a lot about feedback and rewards. And I think we need to bust a major myth here. The idea of constructive criticism.
Yes, we wear constructive criticism like a badge of honor in the corporate world. But Geller argues that for most people, the term is an oxymoron.
Criticism, by its nature, focuses on failure. It implies judgment. It feels like an attack on character. It doesn't build, it tears down.
But I mean, let's play devil's advocate for a second. We have to correct people when they mess up. Right.
Of course.
If my employee sends a disastrous email, I can't just smile and give him a marshmallow.
Of course not. But there's a massive difference between criticism and corrective feedback.
Okay.
Criticism is often directive and accusatory. You did this wrong, fix it. Corrective feedback should be non-directive. You don't start by barking orders, you start with questions.
Give me an example of how that sounds in the real world.
Instead of saying, that report was a mess, rewrite the summary, you ask, how do you think that report went? What were the challenges you faced with the summary?
Ah, so you get their perspective first.
It forces them to analyze their own behavior. It gives them ownership of the solution.
That feels much less aggressive.
Yeah.
It turns it into a coaching moment rather than a punishment.
It preserves their dignity.
Now, what about when people do things right? We're usually terrible at that. Good job is my go-to, but the sources say that's actually lazy feedback.
It is lazy. That's supportive feedback, but to be effective, it needs to be specific.
Good job is too vague.
It doesn't tell the brain what to repeat. You need to say, I really appreciated how you organized that data in the second paragraph. It made the whole argument clearer.
So you're reinforcing the specific behavior you want to see again.
Precisely.
And then there's the reward system. Geller distinguishes between if-then rewards and now-that rewards. This one really surprised me because our whole corporate world is built on if-then.
It's a subtle but powerful shift. If then is contractual. If you wash the car, I will give you $10.
If you hit your sales quota, you get a bonus.
Right. It's an incentive, but it can feel like bribery. It's purely extrinsic. And the problem is, once the money stops,
The behavior stops.
exactly. And now that is unexpected. Now that you washed the car and did such a great job, I want to take you out for pizza to say thanks. It feels like appreciation, not a transaction.
It builds the relationship.
It does. And the goal is to move from doing things for the reward to doing things because the result itself feels good.
The shift from extrinsic to intrinsic motivation.
That is the holy grail. Think about that kid washing the car. At first, he does it for the money,
If-then.
then maybe for the pizza.
Uh-huh.
But eventually, if you build that competence, he does it because he likes driving a shiny car or he wants to impress a date. The consequence becomes natural, not artificial.
That leads us perfectly into the psychology of self-motivation.
Right.
Because if we want to stop living in the gap, we have to motivate ourselves. We can't wait for our boss to give us a now-that pizza.
Right. And Geller cites research by Desi and Ryan on the 3 pillars of self-motivation.
These are essential. If you're feeling stuck, check these 3 gauges.
To feel motivated, you need autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Okay, let's break those down. Autonomy.
The power of perceived choice. It's the shift from I have to do this to I get to do this. Even a small amount of choice can skyrocket motivation.
Competence.
Feeling like you are actually good at what you do. That's why that specific feedback we talked about is so important. It builds that sense of competence.
Right.
If you feel like you're failing, you'll become a failure avoider. You'll check out.
And relatedness. This is the one that connects us to other people.
Right. We're social animals. We need to feel part of a system. This pushes us from independence, the self-made man myth, to interdependence.
The sources use some great analogies here. The geese flying in V formation.
A classic.
We've all seen the inspirational posters, but the science behind it is actually pretty cool.
It is. It's pure synergy. By flying in that V formation, the flock adds 71% more flying range than if each bird flew alone. They share the uplift.
The lead bird breaks the wind, and when it gets tired, it rotates back.
And another takes the lead. It's not about one hero. It's about the group succeeding.
Geller contrasts this with the donkey and the elephant, the political parties here in the U.S.
Which often represents a win-lose mindset. If I win, you lose. That's independence or competition. Interdependence is win-win.
Your success supports my success.
Exactly. If you're flying in the V formation, I need you to be strong so I can draft behind you.
This brings us to social dynamics. If we're interdependent, how we treat each other matters immensely.
Yeah.
We've all heard the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, but the deep dive suggests that's actually flawed.
It is well-intentioned but limited. It assumes everyone is like you. Geller proposes the platinum rule.
Which is,
Treat others how they want to be treated.
the example given is public praise.
Yeah,
I personally don't mind a bit of applause, but I know people who would crawl under the table.
exactly. If you follow the golden rule, you call your shy employee up on stage to give them an award because you would like that.
And you've just punished them.
You punished them, not rewarded them. You didn't treat them how they wanted to be treated.
That's harder, though. That requires empathy. You actually have to know the person.
Precisely. And that requires listening. It builds trust.
So how do we influence others? The sources mention a couple of techniques with odd names. Door in the face and foot in the door.
These are about reciprocity and consistency. Door in the face is when you ask for a huge favor, something unreasonable. Can you volunteer every weekend for 2 years?
And I say, no way, I don't have time for that.
Right, but then I pivot immediately. Okay, I understand. Well, can you just chaperone the zoo trip this Saturday?
And suddenly that sounds very reasonable.
You're much more likely to say yes. It feels like a concession. I came down, so you meet me halfway.
And foot in the door is the opposite.
Yes. I get you to agree to a tiny thing. Can you sign this petition for safe driving?
Cost me nothing. Sure.
Later, I ask, can you put this massive drive carefully sign in your front yard? Because you already signed the petition, you want to be consistent with your previous action.
You see yourself as an advocate now.
So you're more likely to agree to the big ugly sign.
It's using our own psychology to nudge us toward better behavior. And Geller wraps this all up in a concept called AC4P.
Actively caring for people. It's the ultimate goal of interdependence. It goes beyond just following safety rules. It's the brother's keeper mentality.
Looking out for the welfare of others simply because they are part of your community.
Not because you were ordered to.
But, and there's always a but, our brains play tricks on us. We have these mental traps.
The biases. The big one is the fundamental attribution error. It sounds academic, but it destroys relationships.
I feel like I do this in traffic constantly.
We all do. It's the tendency to blame other people's mistakes on their personality, but our own mistakes on the situation.
So if a guy cuts me off, he's a jerk, a bad driver. He has a character flaw.
Exactly. He's a bad person. But if you cut someone off...
Well, a sun was in my eyes, or the lane ended too quickly, or I'm late for this deep dive.
Right. You have a situational excuse. You judge yourself by your intentions, but you judge others by their actions.
And this links to the self-serving bias.
Right. Yes. We take credit for success. I'm a genius. I aced that test. But we externalize failure. The teacher hates me. The test was unfair.
These biases prevent us from seeing reality. They prevent us from fixing the gap because we refuse to own our role in it.
Mm-hmm.
Another trap mentioned is how we handle pressure. We talk about stress versus distress. I always thought stress was just bad.
Not at all. Stress is actually good. Stress means something is important to you. It creates energy. It sharpens focus.
So what's distress?
Distress happens when we feel we have lost control.
So the key isn't eliminating stress. It's increasing control.
That's the empowerment piece. If you have the tools, the training, and the autonomy to handle the pressure, it stays as stress. It fuels you. If you feel helpless, it becomes distress. That's what shuts you down.
And that leads into the type A personality discussion.
Yeah.
We think of type A as the high-strung, heart attack waiting to happen person.
But the research shows that working hard type A behavior is fine. Hard work is healthy. What hurts you is type A emotion, hostility, anger, cynicism. You can work hard and be happy, but if you are working hard and you are angry at the world, constantly cynical about your coworkers,
That's what causes the health issues.
it's the attitude, not the workload.
So we've covered the regrets, the behavior mechanics, the social dynamics, and the mind traps. I want to close with a thought that really flipped my perspective upside down.
Okay.
We usually think, I need to feel motivated to do the work, or I need to feel happy to smile. We wait for the emotion.
And Geller says, behavior precedes emotion.
That is so counterintuitive. It feels backward.
It is, but it's powerful. We don't cry because we are sad. We are sad because we cry. The physical act reinforces the feeling.
So if I'm in a slump, if I'm living in the gap and I feel paralyzed,
Don't wait to feel like getting out of it. You will wait forever. Act.
do something.
Force a smile. Literally use the facial muscles, and your mood will actually improve. It's the facial feedback technique. You can act yourself into a new way of thinking much faster than you can think yourself into a new way of acting.
That connects back to Maslow, doesn't it? The hierarchy of needs.
It does. At the very top, beyond self-actualization, which is what Donovan talks about, is self-transcendence. Doing for others.
The AC4P.
That is the ultimate consequence we should be seeking.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for the listener right now?
It means we need to combine Donovan and Geller for the feeling to arrive. Be a success seeker. Use now that rewards. Build interdependence. Act first, and the motivation will follow.
We started with this is it. If this really is it, then waiting is the most dangerous thing we can do.
The question isn't, how do I feel today? The question is, what will I do today?
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to our listeners for diving deep with us. Go out there and close the gap.
Actively care.
See you next time.